What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Baltimore State Dynasty here on NCAA Football 14. Baltimore State has had an interesting season so far, losing two very close games to two top 10 teams in Minnesota and Auburn, and then dominating in their other four games this season, and they're sitting pretty at 4-2 as they enter their Week 7 bye week. Today we're going to take a look at some of the recruits that Baltimore State is looking to bring into their program next year. Without further ado, let's check them out. First off, we stay in state as we check out John Bowers out of Parkville High in Parkville, Maryland. He's a 3-star recruit ranked 15th in the nation among centers. And he's a guy who could possibly start from day one as Baltimore State's center next year. The current starting center for Baltimore State, Chris Roche, has been serviceable, but Bowers is a clear upgrade over him. Bowers is a mauler in the middle of the line, specializing in run blocking and an absolute force in the trenches. He's a perfect fit for Baltimore State as they look to return to a more run-oriented style of offense. His main issues come with pass blocking, overall speed, and conditioning. I've heard reports that sometimes he's had issues with controlling his diet, and that could spell trouble as far as keeping him on the field. But overall, if he signs on with Baltimore State, I think he's a starting center from day one, and he'd be an absolute asset for the Stallions. Next on our list, we have a guy whose last name might look familiar to Baltimore State fans. Running back Jordan Spain, the younger brother of Baltimore State alum Jacob Spain. He's in his second year at Lackawanna Community College, and the story behind him taking the JUCO route is he actually got into a bit of academic trouble while attending Coconut Creek High in Florida, and that caused him to miss his senior year due to eligibility issues. He then decided to play a few years in JUCO, and he went to one hell of a program in Lackawanna. Spain is a complete spitting image of his big brother. He's an absolute speedster, clocking in at an unofficial 4.32 40 time this past summer, and has an absolutely lethal spin move, just like his brother. The speed, however, is where the similarities end. Jacob moved to receiver his senior year and is currently playing that position in the NFL, while Jordan isn't really what you would call a receiving back, though I wouldn't say catching is a weakness for him. His main issues come from blocking. He's not a very big back at 5'10 and 185 pounds, so expecting him to block 250-pound linebackers may be asking too much of him. He's an absolute speed demon, however, and Baltimore State could be getting a gem should they sign him. We're going to stay at Lackawanna for the next recruit as we look at Spain's teammate on the other side of the ball. Jason Smith, originally from Richmond, Virginia, is another player taking the JUCO route. He, like Spain, has had his troubles, but those were actually with the legal system. He was suspended from school often while attending John Marshall High, even being kicked off the JV squad his sophomore year. He got his act together and in his junior and senior years had two big seasons, and he earned himself a scholarship at Virginia. Everything seemed to be going great for him until he got suspended due to a substance abuse policy violation, which led to a physical confrontation with his RA that caused him not only to get kicked out of Virginia and kicked off the football team, obviously, it also led to him spending 30 days in jail. After spending a whole season away from football, he enrolled at Lackawanna, and the rest is history. Smith has been a class act since enrolling and seems to have really been hell-bent on turning his life around. He actually currently holds a 4.0 GPA and is constantly helping out in the community. His goal is to get back into the NCAA, and it's looking very possible. He's a 3-star recruit ranked 31st among linebackers and is lauded for his hard-hitting style of play. He isn't the fastest player on the field and needs to work on his technique in engaging blockers and his coverage skills, but overall Smith would be a real asset for any school that signed him. Now we head down to Florida to check out Jeremy Parker, the athlete out of Clearwater High, and this man can do it all. He plays a lot of free safety for the Tornadoes, but really plays all over the field. Sometimes I put him in at sub linebacker, at corner, and even on offense as a receiver. He's a speedster with instinctual coverage skills and has one of the highest verticals in the state of Florida. That being said, he's more of a defensive player as a lot of his offensive skills are very raw. He can play any position in the secondary, and with Alex Ace in his final year with the Stallions, they could use Parker as their strong safety. Bringing him in isn't going to be easy though, as Clemson is a school currently at the top of his list, and he also has offers from Miami, Florida, and Florida State. That being said, Baltimore State still is expected to keep an eye out for this kid. We head back up to the DMV to check out Cato Ridley, now in his third year as a starting quarterback at Warwick High in Newport News, Virginia. It's the same school that both Michael and Marcus Vick graduated from, and Ridley is cut from a similar cloth as those two as far as his playing style goes. He's one of the fastest players on the team and is also a track star and holds a scholarship offer from Baltimore State's track team as well. He has an amazing arm and does a great job at making defenders miss. His main flaws are with his accuracy. He has issues with his passing mechanics and also doesn't do a great job of protecting the football, and that's cost his team games in the past few years. Most notably last year in the state championship game, where he would fumble on a potential game-winning drive, costing Warwick the state title in the process. Ridley has led Warwick to a 5-0 record so far this season, and though he really wanted to play for Virginia Tech, only Baltimore State has offered him, so it's looking like he's going to be playing for the Stallions next year. Now we take a look at one of the best players in the Pacific Northwest, DeJuan Blaylock out of Odeya High. He has a knack for being in the right place at the right time, and is one hell of a hitter to boot. He's not really a box safety, he's more of a free safety and more of a zone guy, so if you run some cover 2, cover 3 with him, he'll have a lot of success. And when the ball is thrown in his vicinity, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a turnover. Now currently, most of the teams that are looking at him are on the West Coast, including both Washington and Washington State, but only Baltimore State and Washington State have offered him. And with Reggie Hallmiller expected to be the starter for the next few years at free safety, there may not be a place for Blaylock in Baltimore. That being said, if the Stallions decide to sign him on to the program, they're definitely getting a stud, and Blaylock absolutely looks like he could possibly be a Defensive Player of the Year at some point in his career. We'll have to see what happens. I'm sure Legion would be happy to see him over at Washington State, but only time will tell what will happen in his recruiting process. Next, we got Rafael Rescorla out of Montpelier High in Montpelier, Vermont. He's an exchange student from Brazil and formerly played for Brazil's under-15 soccer team. Unfortunately, he wasn't very good at soccer and didn't stick. He did find a niche in American football, however, and he didn't look back. He moved to America at the age of 15, and with him being noticeably bigger than most of the kids on his team, the head football coach, through a translator of course, convinced him to join the team as an offensive lineman. He's played on the offensive line as the right tackle for the past 3 years, and even bumps out as a goal line tight end as well. He has a lot of speed from his days of playing soccer and is a dominant run blocker from playing offensive line in high school. He's a bit undersized to play offensive line in college, so he'll be bumping out to tight end most likely. He does have to work on his catching and route running, however, with both of them not exactly being polished. With Zach Hobart leaving after this season, Baltimore State could use a replacement at tight end. Bringing in Rescorla, who has plenty of interest in bringing his talents to the Charm City, would be a huge boost for this offense. Cato Ridley isn't the only quarterback that Baltimore State has their sights on. They're also currently looking at Landon Pettiway at a Wicomico High in Salisbury, Maryland. Pettiway isn't your normal quarterback, however. His skill is very average, which is either good or bad depending on how you look at it, but it's his personality that just isn't what you would expect from a quarterback. He's just kind of chill. He doesn't get too mad over mistakes, yet doesn't get too excited for big plays. He's just kind of chill. If you're a wrestling fan, you probably liken his personality to that of Orange Cassidy. He's an extremely accurate quarterback, but doesn't exactly have a cannon for an arm, and he's more of a West Coast styled quarterback as far as offenses go, which actually fits perfectly for Baltimore State. He's already decided his top 3 schools, Baltimore State being one of them, the other 2 being Illinois and Minnesota. We'll have to see which school he picks, but I've heard reports he's leaning heavily towards Illinois. Baltimore State's going to be losing Roderick Holloway after this season, so they'll need a new kicker. Well, look no further than Harmon Cade out of Eastwood Collegiate Institute in Kitchener, Ontario, Canada. Cade is actually relatively new to football. He's been a soccer player most of his athletic career and was a star on the Canadian U17 team before blowing out his ACL. And during his rehab, he started watching more and more American football and decided to become a kicker at his local school. As of this video, Cade is the only person to verbally commit to Baltimore State so far this year, and with Holloway on his way out, they could use his services. Cade has a very strong leg and has been seen making kicks from at least 57 yards out. With that being said, his main struggle is accuracy. He's still learning how to properly kick a football, but once he's able to get his kicks through the uprights, he'll be a legend in the kicking game. Now let's talk about a few guys that we don't have a lot of film on. We have Dace Dillard, the cornerback out of Baltimore, Maryland. He's cut down to 2 teams, and Baltimore State is not one of them. He will be staying in the state of Maryland, but he's currently looking at either Navy or Maryland. Dillard is the 29th ranked corner in the nation and was also considering Rutgers, Virginia Tech, Penn State, and Pitt. Realistically, Baltimore State just never stood a chance, as Navy and Maryland were always his top 2. Keith Ford out of Severn, Maryland is another cornerback in Baltimore State's crosshairs. He is a 3-star prospect ranked 24th among cornerbacks and is currently deciding between Navy, Baltimore State, and Minnesota. He was also considering Oregon, Army, Miami, and North Carolina, but is now cut down to his final 3 and he's currently leaning towards Navy. He will be visiting Baltimore State in week 14. George Turner, the 26th ranked tight end in the nation out of Milton, West Virginia, is currently down to his final 4 teams, with Baltimore State just barely making it. The other 3 teams are Marshall, West Virginia, and Bowling Green, but it's looking like he's going to stay in state and play at Marshall. Though he is visiting Baltimore State in week 10, we'll have to see how that goes, but Marshall seems to be the school he's most interested in. Last but not least, we have the Polish star Anthony Brzezicki, who really had no interest in playing for Baltimore State from the jump. He's leaning towards playing for Army, which is kind of a shock considering he's lived in Poland for most of his life. He is now a permanent U.S. resident, however, after moving to New York a few years ago, so we'll have to see how that develops. So, which player are you most excited to see in the Baltimore State uniform? Let me know in the comments section below. That is going to do it for this recruiting special. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, and for more franchise and dynasty content, make sure you guys hit that sub button and turn your notifications on to join the notification gang. That way every time I upload a video, you guys will be notified. If you have your notifications on but still feel like you're not getting notified, make sure you guys follow me on Twitter and join my Discord server, as I update both with every video uploaded. If you enjoy my content and you want to support me in a more personal way, consider becoming a YouTube channel member or a patron on Patreon. The link to both are down in the description as always. Being a channel member or a patron is never required to enjoy my content, but is always very much appreciated, and I will be doing more in the way of members only streams very soon. That's going to do it for me, however. You guys have yourselves a wonderful rest of your day and night whenever you're watching this. Like I always say, no matter what happens, make sure you keep that mofo rolling. I love y'all 3000. I'm Audi 5000. Deuces.